everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Susan Lynn. I'm a psychic and a medium. Thanks so much for tuning in. I have one of my favorite astrologers here. You guys know I have like a whole tribe of astrologers because I love astrology. It's so helpful. It seriously is so helpful. Adam Free is back. Adam Stargazing Astrology. You can find him on YouTube. He has his own YouTube channel. And if you want a reading with Adam, I would suggest you contact him soon because he's getting booked up. So don't put it off. You'll find his email down in the description. Shoot him an email and he will hook you up. Today, we're going to talk about politics. We're going to be talking about the Supreme Court. For real, the Supreme Court, you guys. We're also going to be talking about the transits that the United States is going through, which is super important because, well, we're on a roller coaster, guys. We might as well need to know when the downs, the ups, and the curves, and the twist, and we need to know this information. I think knowledge is power. And we're also going to talk about Trump's transits, because I asked Adam before we started, was there a transit that potentially was going to kill him? But no, there isn't one. But there are some really bad transits coming for Trump, which makes sense with the energy that I've been seeing. So we're going to talk about all that. Thank you, Adam, for coming. I really appreciate it.
All right, Susan, thank you so much for having me on your channel. This is extremely exciting. So really quickly for everyone out there, I'm currently offering discounted astrological readings across the board of all types. So we're talking birth charts, transit charts, travel relocation charts, relationship charts. So if you have any questions about any aspect of life, please do send me an email. All right, so we are going to be starting off today with the Supreme Court. So just a little back information, the Supreme Court first assembled on February 1st, 1790 in the Exchange Building in New York City. So the reason that we wanted to start with the Supreme Court is because we know Trump was convicted on all 34 accounts. Not surprising, good for us. And he's kind of begging the Supreme Court, to kind of try to like pull him out of this mucky water. And as we know, one of the big reasons why he's doing that is because during his when he served, he was able to push some of the Supreme Court justices into power. And so who knows, there may be some sort of subconscious thing going on, like I pushed them into power, I helped them, so now it's maybe their turn to help me. Perhaps something like that. So anyways, it was assembled February 1st, 1790. So it was when the sun was in Aquarius. And Aquarius is the sign that rules politics. So this makes complete sense. Another interesting thing as well is that Pluto back in 1790 was in Aquarius as well. So Pluto right now has just gone back into Aquarius. Pluto makes its full cycle around the chart approximately every 240 to 260 years. So this is definitely representative of that democratic stance that the United States likes to stand for, and that Pluto in retrograde energy. So Pluto represents power. The reason why this is so big is because everything in politics is based upon power plays. Who has the power? Who doesn't have the power? Another thing about the United States is that the Supreme Court chart has its Pluto in what's called a retrograde aspect. So a Pluto in retrograde aspect indicates imbalances of power and imbalances of power dynamics. So we really kind of see that with the Supreme Court justice, for example, people like Amy Coney Barrett, of these individuals, which, who are basically in it for an unbalanced power dynamics. So it very much represents that Pluto in retrograde that we're going through. It was also founded with Neptune in retrograde as well. This one is really interesting because Neptune rules idealism. Whenever Neptune is in a retrograde motion, the idealism can become kind of delusional around the edges. And that delusional behavior can really kind of get in the way of what the US likes to stand for, which is liberal-minded and democracy. So that's another thing too that is kind of highlighted with the Supreme Court justices is their delusional kind of backwards behavior with things. The planet Uranus, which represents volatility and unpredictability, is sitting on the midheaven in the chart. The midheaven stands for the goal aspiration. So the goal aspiration for the Supreme Court with Uranus sitting there is all about changing things. It can be upset, it can be volatile. So the volatility can make us move like 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. For example, we saw this with abortion. So it's the Supreme Court does not have a predictable chart. The chart is unpredictable. There's an imbalance of power. There's a lot of soul searching that needs to happen here. However, there is a kind of overall ideology of a kind of a liberal and democratic stance, even though we don't quite see that. So that's kind of the overall energy of the Supreme Court. It's very confusing for all of us. I personally don't really believe that they're going to be able to help Trump. However, they own a lot of power, but the power seems to stand in the realm of being imbalanced.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was a lot. That was a lot. Like, I didn't know any of that. I mean, wow, that idealism, right? In retrograde. Like, wow. Okay, wait. I have a question about the Pluto.
Yes.
240 years. It just went back into Pluto. Tell me about that again.
Okay, so yes. Okay, good question. Okay, so Pluto is the slowest moving planet in the astrology chart. So there's 12 signs in the zodiac. It takes about anywhere between like, I believe like 12 to like around 25 years for Pluto to move through each sign. So it's made its full cycle around Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, and now it's back into Aquarius, where it started when it was founded with Pluto and Aquarius during the Supreme Court.
We're back where we started, y'all.
Yeah. So
we're at the inception point.
Yes. Yes.
Dang, this is giving me chills. I don't know why. Because I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
So Pluto really represents like the soul. So there's a several fold plot process with Pluto. It's power, transformation, and purge. We've seen a lot of purge come up because it's the end of degrees of Capricorn. So now we're seeing transformation occur out of that purge. And then everything takes a couple years, and then we'll see more of a rise with Aquarian ideals. This is just huge because, Pluto really represents the aspect of transformation, the aspect of the soul. So this is really like the soul of the United States in relation to the Supreme Court and this full cycle of Pluto and Aquarius, Aquarian ideals. In Aquarius, really, there's a strong level of Aquarius wanting the truth seeker. That is a real key phrase for Aquarius. So we're really kind of seeing that now with Donald Trump, for example. And so Pluto right now is actually in the retrograde position. So the power structures are being reviewed with that Aquarian energy right now. So Pluto being in Aquarius. So the truth will continue to come out and continue to reveal itself.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm happy to hear that. So basically, it just gets better from here as far as clarity and this sort of balancing of the truth. Would you say that, like, as far as the Supreme Court goes?
Yeah. So as we know, these Pluto cycles move really slow. So there's so much like so Capricorn, the sign that what was before this, Capricorn, Pluto and Capricorn. So Capricorn in tarot rules the devil card. And it's an interesting thing because it's two individuals and they're tied together by shackles. And those represent the shackles of materialism. So we see when materialism runs rampant, we see what it does. It creates chaos. It creates just a lot of imbalanced energy. And Aquarius is really more humanitarian. In tarot, it rules the star card, which is all about hopes and dreams and wishes and friendships. Much more idealistic.
So that's where we were, and this is where we're going. We're going from the devil to the star. Okay,
yes.
y'all. Hang
Yes.
on, we're going to get there, but it moves slow. But we're
Yes.
at least heading in the right direction.
Yes. Yes.
Hopefully, having learned all those lessons, which is the reason why we went through that time period, was to learn. Oh, wow, excessive greed, buying off judges, all that stuff was Capricorn, right? We
Mm-hmm.
learned that. Well, hopefully, we learned that. What now we're doing is we're getting an opportunity to put in practice what we learned, right? We're not going to
Yes.
let them do this anymore. We're going to make better ethics, rules, and put teeth in them and all of those things. But these are steps. What makes me feel good is I feel like the direction we're going is the right direction.
Yes. 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 And it's interesting because on a day-to-day basis, it seems slow. But for example, a year ago, Trump wouldn't be convicted on all 34 accounts. He probably wouldn't be convicted on any account.
That's true. It's true.
So
It's
it's
true.
kind of it's moving pretty fast. You look at it
It's
year
true.
by year.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And next year we'll be so much better off. That gives us really good hope too for the Supreme Court in 2025 when we have
Hmm.
Biden in office and Congress, and we can actually go in there and either expand it or, boot these people off, impeach them if they're
Yeah.
not going to be ethical, right? So that I think that
Yeah.
just gives us the extra power. Like you're saying, a year ago we probably wouldn't have had the moxie to do this, but we do
No.
now. And a year from now, we'll have more moxie because we're moving in the right direction.
Hmm. Hmm. Now, it's like we've come this far, but now what's really interesting is to wait to hear the sentencing that's going on.
Yes.
He's starting to get convicted of all this stuff, but it's like, all right, now what? Like, is
Right.
he gonna get house arrest? Is he going to serve time? Like now, like
Yeah,
what's gonna come out of this? So it's
exactly.
the next step forward's coming.
Justice.
Yeah.
Justice.
Hmm.
Yep.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And he is. He's going to get something. I'll tell you that. He's going to have house arrest, but he's really making it very hard for the judge to not give him jail time because he's out there. He's not part of the thing that the judge says is, well, are you sorry? Right. Like, you see all these people go up there and say, I'm so sorry. They kind of
Yeah.
beg for forgiveness. Right. And Trump isn't going to do that. As a matter of fact, he's going to spend between now and then basically, screaming at people and just being anything but sorry. So I think it's going to be hard for the judge to not do something like throw the book at him.
Hmm.
So that's pretty interesting.
Hmm.
Okay, are we good with the Supreme Court? Because I feel a lot better about it. Thank you.
We are good. We are good. So yeah, that's a little clarity around the Supreme Court.
Yes, definitely clarity around and hope. Honestly, the most important thing is now I have hope. So,
Yeah.
did you want to talk about the U.S. chart transits? We wanted to talk about the U.S. chart transits. We also wanted to talk about Trump's transits, you guys, because as I mentioned in the beginning, like he's got some transits. Let's just call it energy, right? If you don't know anything about astrology, understand that there's energy affecting you and your personal astrology. That's why you get a reading. But this energy changes on a month-to-month basis, sometimes on a day-to-day basis, right? So sometimes it's longer periods of time, depending, like he mentioned, the planet moves slower or faster.
Hmm.
There's some things coming for Trump, especially around the sentencing and the convention and the end of the year. So this is not going to be a good month for him energetically on top of everything else, right? So that's
Hmm.
why we do this astrology because it really does work. It's a science. It really
Hmm.
does
Hmm.
make a difference if you can understand how it applies to your life. So where do you want to go next, Adam? Do you want to go to the U.S. transits or?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah. So
All
the
right.
US, so the US chart was founded July 4th, 1776. So that was a while ago. So some of the major transits for the US is, again, as I mentioned, like the Supreme Court, that Pluto return, which is huge. So a very much, a transformation of power, that purging of the power, and then again, making way for like a new process of power to kind of be rebirthed. So what I'm seeing now is there are some really tense aspects to with the planet Mars. So Mars represents battle, it represents aggression, it represents war. So Mars are in what are these called square aspects, which are considered hard aspects, which create tension and dynamic. So these could bring out more anger, war, conflict. Individuals like, say, the MAGA, for example, are very much affected by this unleashed Mars energy. For example, Mars is in what's called a hard or square aspect to the planet Saturn, which represents structures and duty and foundation and discipline. So when Mars is in a hard aspect to that, it wants to negate everything that should be in line, everything that should be in order. It basically wants to it's sort of the analogy of like taking like a fence and like throwing a bomb at it and like exploding it. Something like that.
That's Mars throwing a bomb at a fence, which is the police and laws.
Yeah.
Guess what, guys? They're going to get arrested. They're going to get arrested. That's what we're talking about here. Go ahead, Adam. Tell us how that's going.
So thank God, right, that the MAGA is shrinking and that they don't have the power that they used to, which definitely helps with these aspects. Another aspect is Mars is in another harsh aspect to the planet Pluto. So a Mars Pluto can be like war, conflict, anger, transformation. A positive way to use this aspect collectively is to like put the pedal to the metal if there's things that you're dilly-dallying on. This is great for stimulating action. This is great for overcoming fears. This is great for overcoming obstacles. This is great for anything daring, bold, adventuresome, anything along those realms. This aspect is really wonderful for. However, though, when Mars gets too fiery, it can create things like explosions, fires, heart attacks, wars. So it's all about really keeping that energy in check right now, as far as the collective of the collective energetic force field of the U.S. The sun, transiting sun, is in a harmonious aspect to the planet Saturn, which indicates good discipline effort. So right now, wonderful time collectively to kind of focus in, hone in on something, hone in on a discipline, hone in on a craft. There are some Neptune aspects that are really good for carrying out some sort of idealism right now. So if anyone makes vision boards, any artists out there, any musicians, if you are contributing to a collective ideal for a better future, right now is a great way to do that. That will literally raise kind of the evolution and the soul of the US. So artists, dreamers, meditators, anything healing like that, it's just very essential right now to kind of help transmute and diffuse some of that angry energy that's kind of out there. So the last thing is there is some strong 10th house aspects. So the 10th house in the astrology chart is all about career. It's all about bringing things to the limelight. It's the house that rules the politicians, the house that rules it's the most daytime, most objective aspects right now. So that being said, the 10th house really it's all about kind of bringing your best self forward with the 10th house, bringing your best foot forward, and really, trying to live in alignment, with your high ideals, with your high values. That's kind of the overall transits for the US and the collective force field.
Right, the collective force field. I love that. So I love the fact, unfortunately, we have Mars, trying to kind of battle, in a sense, Saturn, but we also have the sun kind of, balancing that. And we've got some really nice aspects. So I think how you might see that happen is this Mars energy, for sure. It's like you said, people that are susceptible to anger, people that are susceptible to like unbridled passion where they just want to go crazy. Those people are going to really probably make a scene, but Saturn is going to be there. That's the police. Saturn's going to be there to put the smackdown on them. Okay. So for you and I, that also means let's not get in fights with anybody. Let's not get in fights with any MAGAs or anything. This energy is very combustible, is what they just told me, which is what you said is fire. So we just want to, and also be careful of fires. If you're watching this video for some reason, I just got this energy. If you're barbecuing or something like that, we need to be aware of fire. Apparently, for some reason, this is for my viewers. It could be wildfires. It could be any kind of thing like that. It's very combustible. Think
Mhm,
about it like that. Don't go looking to throw gasoline on a fire. If somebody's mad, don't go out there and this is not the time to face them off and tell them how wrong they are. This is the time to leave them alone.
mhm,
Throw cold water on it, even in your own energy mind. Just think, I'm putting cold water on this in your
mhm,
own mind, because that actually can help.
mhm,
That's fascinating, you guys. So that's how it's in the US and also in our personal lives, right?
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
very helpful. So you want to talk about Trump's aspects?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So things have been on a steady decline for Trump. Um, so a while back, he was in kind of like a Jupiter, sort of a Jupiter era in which he was able to just kind of get away with things. Lady Luck was on his side. He was also born with a lot of positive Jupiter aspects, indicating like just good fortune and ease and luck around gaining things like wealth and property. And he has squandered that and abused that. So I would almost actually say he's lucky enough to have his karma catch up on him sooner rather than later, because the planet Saturn represents karmic rebalancing. So Saturn is essentially really here to kind of get things back in alignment. Saturn doesn't need to lay the schmack down on you or anyone else if you're in integrity and in alignment. The further you are off, the bigger schmack you're gonna get. So he has been way off, and the Lord of Karma will get you eventually. So it pretty much has caught up to him. So he's very much in a Saturn era right now, in which he's having to pay his penance. Now, folks out there, no need to worry, because these these eras, these time periods last for a long time. And I truly believe that this will last to the end of his life. Whether that be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever. Another thing as well is that so we just saw him get convicted of those 34 accounts. So this was when the planet Saturn, it was in a direct motion. So Saturn is still in a direct motion right now. So at the end of June, coming up June 29th to be exact, the planet Saturn will go retrograde. So any little dust that wasn't swept out from under the rug is getting it looked at under a microscope. And so basically any little thing is gonna like pinch him. It's like the Lord of Karma is gonna be looking at him through a magnifying glass, through a microscope. Anything in which every little thing will get pointed out. So that being said, things are not if they're not looking good now, right? And they're only going to continue to go downhill for them and everyone around him. Judge Eileen Cannon, all those individuals who are not already thrown in jail because they supported him are going to get dissected as well with this aspect. So
Really?
that
Guilty
thing, yeah,
by I mean, just because they're connected to him?
yeah, because we know that everyone that's connected with it's like a
That's true.
train.
That's true.
Everyone
Yeah.
that's connected with him goes down
That's true. That's
to
true.
varying degrees.
Yeah.
And a Saturn in retrograde is so acute to the law of karma, to the law of cause and effect,
Wow.
that they are basically it's like by default because they're associated with the stronger the association, the worse it's going to be. Um, so
The
that is
stronger the association, the worse it's going to be. Wow.
yes. So it's just fantastic. Um, yeah. So he has some adverse
Oh
Mars
boy.
aspects, which indicate anger, rage. Some adverse aspects with Mars and Saturn, indicating that repressed anger is going to start to come up. It's going to start to blow. I mean, this could indicate harsh aspects with Saturn. Saturn is delays, it's frustrations, it's limitations, it's lack, it's solitary. So these harsh aspects, they're not fun, they're not happy. And he's in relation to these square aspects, it's like having to experience the hard edges of life. No
Wow.
fluffs, no fluffs, no laces, no frills, no Jupiter, no soft beds, no plushy gold toilets, whatever. You know what I mean? This is like this these aspects kind of more remind me of like concrete.
Jail, kind of like
Met-
jail.
Metal, concrete, hard, cold, frigid.
He's
Uh,
not going to like that very much at all.
no, 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 no. So there's also another Mars aspect in relation to Venus. So Venus stands for values, it stands for popularity. So this does not look good for his popularity. This doesn't look good for financial. This doesn't look good for his his just his overall sense of like, yeah, his overall sense of popularity. Not good. Also some aspects with Uranus and Mars indicating somewhat of a volatile temperament going on here. He did have a couple of Pluto aspects that weren't so harsh. I'm not sure if they're enough to save him, to tell you the truth. I see mostly these square aspects. So things are continuing to go downhill from him. And I've been saying that, and we've all been saying that on our channels for now. And they're continuing to go down.
So do you feel like July? I mean, I'm throwing this wild card
So
question at you. What month is likely to be the worst? Like, is it June or July or August?
that's a good question. So I know the judge is supposed to give him his sentencing in July
Hmm.
when Saturn will be in retrograde.
Oh,
So
wow.
it I mean we could expect anywhere from maybe house arrest um to maybe a prison sentence even. I mean I would not be surprised with a prison sentence, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, when you think about it, because he's going to have the cushy, if he's got house arrest in Mar-a-Lago, that's not really Saturn in retrograde. That's Jupiter. I mean, that's like, oh
That's
yeah, we're going to slap your hand. You're going to get to sleep in your bed, and you're going to get to have your personal chef and your pool. But
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
That's
this,
like
he really
yeah.
could be in a different, and then there's no indication around health with this other than Mars maybe being like, like something with anger and snapping, like a
Yeah.
stroke or
Well,
um,
that's a good question. So excess Mars would be excess fire, which could be something like strokes, heart attacks, excess heat. Yeah, so something along those lines, maybe cardiovascular, even like just manic episodes, or
yeah, right,
just
more.
yeah, just kind of like like literally like mentally, just because he's been very much like very on the edge for so long. This
Right.
a sentencing could potentially put him over.
Yeah, yeah. It could. So the last thing I would say too, because I'm just like I'm connected to this energy of kind of concrete, kind of like rough linens, right? Like the antithesis of luxury. The other thing is a hospital is to be in a hospital situation, right? Which would be very bare bones. I mean, they're not trying to give you
Yeah,
silk seats, they're just trying to keep you alive. So
yeah,
that's also something that I'm picking up right now is it could actually also be a hospital type situation. So
um, uh,
but I think it's excellent that you pointed out that it could just be he's more bombastic, that his extremes are more extreme because
yes.
of the Saturn, because of the Mars, because of his Venus, and the repressed anger sort of coming out. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like the more
Yeah.
he gets clamped down on, the more he's going to, have those outbursts, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Wow. Well, I wouldn't want to be him. And I'm not wishing anything on anybody. We're simply reading the energy. We could just as easily be telling you guys that he's got Jupiter everywhere and he's going to get off scot-free. We could be telling you that. We're just reading the energy. It just turns out that Saturn is the Lord of karma. We've been telling you karma's been coming for a long time. And this guy had all these opportunities to not be the person that he is, right? To be a better version of himself. He didn't choose that. And now he gets to have the results of that. And especially with this Saturn in retrograde, the idea of they're just going back and checking all his work. Like, did you said you were going to do this work? Did you do it? You didn't do it. So now here's another lesson for you.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. Anything else? Wow, we've covered a lot. Do you want to talk about the new moon, or what would you like to talk about next?
Sure. Yeah. So this is so the new moon forecast happens when the sun and the moon are in the same astrological sign. So this
And
is
it matters to them. This is the thing that you guys don't understand. Y'all know that this is important. We don't. I'm like, new moon, full moon, I don't care. As long as you're not a werewolf and you're not going to attack me. You got to tell us, why does the new moon matter? Why does it matter to us?
Yeah. So the new moon is the time to draw inward, a time to plant new psychological seeds, a time to
plan
like a vision board.
Okay.
Yeah. And time to withdraw, to envision what you want for the future, to envision what you want to culminate as represented by the full moon.
Okay, so the new moon is when you figure out what you want and you start manifesting it inside. And the new moon is when it bursts that thing that you said on the new moon. So if you guys get into this lunar cycle, you can see how you would want to figure out where you want to go for the next couple of weeks, and then in the new moon, see what you did. It's a way to actually kind of plan your life and track and see how things are happening. So that's why it's important to pay attention to the new moon. So go ahead. What is it? What can we expect with this new moon?
So we are going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets in Gemini.
Holy.
Yes.
Chatterbox. And tell me about Gemini. Chattery, the twins, what else?
So some keywords of Gemini, we have communication. Short trips. Inquisitive mind, which is, curiosity. Restlessness.
Oof.
Can be a bit fickle, and can be a bit ungrounded. So those are really kind of the key words of Gemini. Things get very excitable and kind of hyped up during the Gemini period.
5 planets.
Yeah. Great time. Yeah, great time for making connections. Great time for going on like a early summer trip. Great time for just overall communications. Gemini is an air sign. It's ruled by the planet Mercury. So communication, inquisitive mind, learning something new, that is also great with Gemini. Whether or not you're going to master whatever you're going to be learning, that's a little up to question. But as far as the inquisitive mind of, dilly-dallying with a new instrument or dilly-dallying with a new sort of hobby or something, that's very appropriate with all this Gemini energy going on. So that being said, we have the sun and the moon sign sitting right next to each other. They are forming what's called a square aspect, or a bit of a challenging aspect to the planet Saturn, which represents the Lord of Karma and the Taskmaster. So what we have here could be a bit of a challenge to reach our goals. We may feel restricted or weighted down by some sort of responsibility here. So this is definitely a good time, to find that work, that balance between work and play, for sure. If there's anything that you really need to tend to that is pressing with this square aspect, as far as practicalities of life, we're talking health, finances, things like that, that could potentially stop you from moving forward unless you tend to it. So very important to tend to practicalities, things that really need to be looked at, in order for that Saturn square aspect not to be so challenging. Because again, Saturn wants to keep everything in alignment. If you have been swinging off the pendulum, Saturn will hit you harder. That's just Saturn. So Mars is still in Aries. So Mars in Aries is brash. Mars is a natural ruler of Aries. Aries is the first sign. Mars and Aries, great for action, excitement, adventure, road trips, things like this. Wonderful, wonderful for that. Not so good sometimes for things like focus. Good for ambition though. So it's forming what's called another square aspect to Pluto, which represents power. So this is intensity and ambition to achieve goals. Um, can also be extreme courage and willpower. So great time to kind of jump over hurdles, jump over obstacles. Wonderful energy for that too. If you want to be bold and daring with some sort of new enterprise in your life, in any aspect of life, this is a great transit for that. Uranus is still sitting next to Jupiter. So we still have the Uranus going on in Taurus, which is all about the finances. Uranus and Taurus can be a lot of instability with the crypto market. Nothing new. We've seen that for a while now. Sitting next to Jupiter, it blows up that Uranian energy. I would not sell. I would not buy. I would hold, flat out hold. And then last aspect, we mentioned this with Donald Trump, is the planet Saturn, which is that lord of karma, is going into a retrograde motion at June 29th. This is huge. So anywhere in which any of us may have been out of integrity or kind of not following the laws of nature may come back to us a little harder, really in order to make us kind of get level-headed, get practical. Saturn really wants a practical, kind of level-headed, clean type of lifestyle and way of being. So if any of us are swinging off the pendulum, which most of us probably are to a certain extent, the Saturn in retrograde makes us kind of look at things under a more critical type of microscope in order to kind of refine the impurities to be able to live a better life. Yeah, so that's the collective forecast.
And you could see how that last thing he just said is just going to take Trump to task, right? I mean, that's it, right? If you haven't been living your life, sort of in a authentic way, being do unto others as you'd have done unto yourself, then you're out of balance. That's really it. It goes back to you're out of balance. And he keeps talking about the pendulum being off, right? It's Saturn says, here's the guardrails. You need to be in balance. Here's your two guardrails. You the heck over there. What are you doing? Get back over here, right? You know what I mean? So, but we all know how Saturn talks. It doesn't tell you that. It gives you an action that you get a speeding ticket. You get that late fine. You're like, oh, I forgot to pay that bill, and now I got a big fine that I got to pay, right? That's how it gets you back in the guardrails. So pay attention to what Adam is saying, and in your life, if you haven't been paying attention to something and you're worried about it, that means it's important. Now's a good time to at least pay some attention to it. You may not be able to fix it. Spirit doesn't always care if you fix it. Spirit cares that you pay attention to it, that you acknowledge it, that you say, oh, I really need some help with this problem. I've been ignoring it, but now I'm aware of it and I really need help. That in many cases is enough to kind of get you off the hook, in my opinion. Now, we know Trump is not doing that. He's out there still screaming nonsense, and he's going to continue doing that until Saturn hauls him off, I think. So that's me. I'm not an astrologer, so I don't think Saturn really hauls you off, but the Popo do. So the Popo are going to haul him off. Either that or a gurney. One or the other is coming for him.
Well, the Popo's like kind of like Saturn, right? The law.
They are. They're the law. That's the guardrails, right? Like, so is the IRS. So is, you didn't pay your water bill and now your water's cut off. Oh, darn. I thought it was on auto pay and that credit card got hacked last year. You know what I mean? Like things like that, you're not paying attention to. Spirit tries to bring your attention to it. Pay attention, you guys, because Spirit is trying to help you. If you're trying to help yourself, they're trying to help you. Trump is not trying to help himself. He's out there digging his own hole. So he's going to get it full blast, really. And it really couldn't happen to a better person. So thank you so much, Adam. You guys, if you've watched to the end, you get gold stars, and consider checking out his YouTube channel. Adam Stargazing Astrology on YouTube. You'll have to actually look at my description in this video. You just click on more. You'll see some words and it'll say more. Click that. And that'll open up the whole description of people are like, I don't know where to find this down below thing people always talk about. It is kind of hidden on YouTube. So you kind of have to look closely and then it'll say more. Click that. The whole thing opens up, right? That's where you'll find Adam's email, which is important because then you can email him and get a reading. You guys, this is, we told you today how these aspects can affect you. And it's just so important to know your particular astrology and how that astrology is going to be impacted over the next months, right? So you might know this is not the right time for me to maybe quit my job, or this is a great time for me to quit my job, or this is not the best time to retire. Oh no, this is a great time to retire. Why not have all that extra information, right? So this is how you, one of the ways you can get it. So why not arm yourself with all the knowledge that you can get? Thank you so much, Adam. I really appreciate you joining me.
Thanks so much for having me on, Susan. I look forward to the next collaboration.
Yes, absolutely. All right, everybody, take good care, and we'll see you soon, okay? For entertainment purposes only.